You walk on the path that is labeled by stakes, that is bound by ropes and engulfed by the canopy the trees provide. You walk through the yard and are reminded of your place. The blood that was spilt and the sins thinly veiled is a white man's grace. Iron bell sonic waves carried through the air, carried in sails and erected perpendicular to a black man's body. Despite the North's reputation for freedom and abolitionism, New England was marked by slavery, specifically in the colonial institutions we call the Ivy League. Schools built by slaves, maintained by slaves, and funded by merchants who earned their fortunes trading and working African slaves in New England and the Caribbean. Isaac Royall was one such merchant. After earning his fortune in Antigua, he came to Massachusetts, bringing his family and his slaves. His son, Isaac Royall Jr., inherited his father's wealth, including 18 of his father's black slaves, his plantation in Antigua, and their home on Ten Hills Farm in Massachusetts. Before Isaac Royall Jr. fled to Nova Scotia during the American Revolution, he left a will for his wealth in the Americas, 1,000 acres of land to Harvard College, which they were to use to endow the first law professorship, a bequest that ultimately established the Harvard Law School that we know today, a school so entrenched in its slave-driven origins that in 1936, 157 years after Royall's will, the school adopted Isaac Royall's family crest as their school crest, which was not replaced until 2016 by a student-led movement. Slave money wasn't the only thing running Harvard, however. And not only did slaves build the original infrastructure, such as the infamous Harvard Hall, black people were enslaved in the domestic setting as well, as they labored in the Wadsworth House on Harvard Yard. In this very house, built by slaves, Harvard presidents lived with their families, General George Washington stationed his headquarters, and black people worked tirelessly as human property of their white owners. It is here at the Peabody Museum that Harvard holds the skulls analyzed by Professor Ernest Albert Houghton, whose research focus aimed to confirm white superiority through detailed comparisons of human skulls. Years earlier, Harvard anatomist John Collins Warren learned in his classes that black people sat at the bottom of humanity and eventually revealed other research in an attempt to confirm this racist belief. Now living 2 miles from their campus, I can't help but wonder, what would they have thought of me? What research would they have conducted, and what theories would they attempt to confirm? What would they do with my body? What would they do to yours? What would they do to us today? I think they've answered that question for us. Harvard and other modern universities currently sit on the forefront of the world's cutting-edge research. Their graduates shape global policy, lead our nations, and run our economies. But their histories remain. And their history has again manifested itself. Slavery was an economic system that filled a need for labor in its day. The need for cheap labor by the elite did not disappear with the 13th Amendment. It evolved. It evolved into the prison system, and it evolved into the modern labor system, where the impoverished and exploited work and build tirelessly for a class of elites. A nation prided in our commitment to freedom and truth. It's time to look beneath the veil that the modern labor system has hidden itself behind. Who laid the first cobblestone beneath our feet? Who cleared the first roads and paved the first streets? Who paves them now? How many genealogies began on these grounds, the ground that you stand on right now? How many of those families continue to proliferate today? How many of their ancestors were taken from their land and given a name like a meaningless number? How many of them are now given an actual number? How many haven't even left these grounds in the first place? How much black blood watered this earth, created the means by which their green grass grows? How much of this impoverished blood floods our streets today? You walk on the path that is labeled by stakes, that is bound by ropes and engulfed by the canopy the trees provide. You walk through the yard and are reminded of your place. The blood that was spilt and the sins thinly veiled is a white man's grace. Iron bell sonic waves carried through the air, carried in sails and erected perpendicular to a black man's body. Bodies whose price tag built this yard that stays, and whose bodies are worked tirelessly hard to lay these royal red bricks.